What is up, guys? I'm sure some of you have been wondering where Project AP1 has been. I introduced it to the channel and haven't done anything for it. The reason being is, one, it was wintertime when I unveiled it, but two, my motor mounts had failed, completely ripping out of the cup. So I noticed that there was an issue while driving at higher RPM. The shifter would start to shake kind of violently, and then trying to change the gears and get them into the gates was very difficult. So that prompted me to kind of investigate things a little bit further. Sure enough, when looking into the engine, I could see that the top of the mount here is completely separated. These are the new mounts. They're just an OEM replacement mount. They come nickel coated or some sort of like corrosion coating from the factory, but as I've seen with the original mounts, that will still rust. So I just kind of sprayed it with a coat of rust paint to kind of prevent that. And the job should be fairly simple. I have a J's Racing header, which is, I think, a little bit, sticks down a little bit farther versus the OEM. So clearance might be a little bit tighter. On the way the mounts sit into there, they sit basically into the subframe like this, coming in from the top. Two nuts on the bottom through the subframe here. And then the metal cups go on the top here and they attach to the engine block on this side. So for each side, at minimal, we're just going to take the top nut off while it's still being held in place by the subframe, undo the bottom nuts from the subframe. Passenger side, like I said, because the clearance might be a little bit tighter there, I may have to actually take the three 14mm headed bolts that hold the metal bracket to the engine block off just to get this out. Driver's side doesn't look like it'll be an issue. We have plenty of room there. So tools for this job, I put the car up on all fours for the jack stands. I have a jack with a piece of wood to support the engine because we are going to have to, once the motor mount is undone, we're going to have to lift the engine up a little bit to make room to get it out. And then other than that, it's just basic hand tools, 17mm, 14mm. Have a couple extensions just because you may need them for certain areas, but that's just about it. So let's get this car back together so we can get it on the road and do a driving impression, shall we?
Yeah, see, if this is like this, fine. Oh,
you could talk, I'm muting it anyways. Alright, so just to give myself a little bit of room here, I'm going to take off the cross member brace here. You probably you can get away with leaving it on, but it's only 6 bolts, so just get rid of it. Alright, so now with the brace gone, we're going to take the 17mm nuts off of the bottom of the motor mount. So there's 4 altogether, 2 on each side. So starting with the driver's side mount, I'm going to take the 17mm nut off of the top of it now. So we're kind of up in here. You have enough room to get a 1/2-inch drive socket. I'm on it, and it shouldn't be that tight in here. The only problem is you don't have a lot of cranking room, but once it gets going, let's see if I can grab by hand. Yep. Okay, so there's that. We'll do the passenger side next. Because of the clearance here, this nut is a little bit more difficult to get at, and this is what I was talking about with my J's header. It's right there. So what I'm probably going to end up doing is I'm going to take the 4 14mm bolts that hold the metal bracket here to the block, and then this will allow me to maneuver the whole upper piece here and just pull it right out. So that's probably the method of attack for that. Alright, so to get this process started, before I put a jack underneath there to support the oil pan, I've already cracked all 4 of these bolts loose, and I'm going to use my ratcheting wrench here just because this is tight between the clearance and that bolt and the header. Get this out of the way now, and then I'll support the engine with the jack, and I'll take the remaining 3 bolts out, and then I'll be able to raise the engine, and I should be able to clear the mounts on both sides with them being completely free. The only difference being the passenger side here is going to come out with the hole metal bracket here attached to it, and I'll separate the mount from the bracket in my vise outside of the car. The motor mount's completely disconnected from the subframe. I'm going to raise the engine up as much as I can. While I'm raising it, I'm going to keep an eye for the wire connections and anything going on back here so I don't crush the coolant pipe or anything along there. We're just going to go gently. You can see the motor go up. Mind my creaky ass jack. One motor mount came out.
One came out.
I'll see if I could pull the second one out there. So that should be plenty of room. We'll grab them and see what we got. So here's the existing motor mounts, and as you can see, the top's completely ripped out of them. And the factory mounts are fluid filled. That's why you see a little juicy juice inside of there. But so with the new mount, I think I'm going to try to put it in pre-assembled for the sake of making things a little bit easier. So new mount, which I sprayed them with some paint to kind of prevent rusting as much as I can. Support bracket, and then there's a notch right here that lines up with the bulge right there. So they kind of lock in place. Nut. And if I can't get it in one shot all assembled, I'll have to do them in pieces, but I'm hoping that won't be the case. Here we go. All right, so now we're gonna do the header side, and there's even less clearance here just because of where the header sits. It may be a little bit easier on a stock headered car. So motor mount in there. Here's the cup, and this is what I'm talking about. You have to line up this notchy right here with the groove on top of the mount itself. You'll feel it when it grabs it. I just don't remember where it is. So we'll do this. Let's just finger it and see. Alright, so the bumpy's right here on the inside. Oh, there we go, first shot. So now that's in there like that. Take the bracket. And hopefully just be able to squeeze this in there. Oh wait, I'm upside down. That, and then the nut. So what I'm doing is I'm putting the nut that holds the motor mount to the engine bracket and just kind of getting it hand snug. So once I have that in there, and this way this will kind of keep the support cup from falling out of its groove, and I'll be able to lower the engine from there and then tighten everything to the motor, and then finally I'll just snug these up. Once the bracket is flush and tight to the engine and everything's kind of sitting where it's going to go, I'm just going to work my way down. I'm going to tighten this up to torque spec, and then the bottom subframe nuts as well. Okay, that should be good right there. And just kind of get this ready in place like there. And it actually looks like I can probably start threading the bolts in on this side before I start to lower it. So I might do that, catch the bottom too. So I have some alignment. No, maybe I'm not. I'm lying. Let's see this side. Alright, I could start this side right here. Oh, no I can't. Totally lying. So I gotta drop the motor a little bit. But this side looks like it'll be easier to grab first, so I'm gonna do this first and then just kind of work both sides going down, getting the bolts threaded in, and then I'll torque them once I get it down low enough. Alright, so before I actually drop the engine, I realize I'm not gonna have clearance between the header and the top nut here that holds the motor bracket to the motor mount. So while the header and the engine is still jacked up, I'm just kind of torquing this down and getting this tight, because otherwise I won't be able to get the wrench back in there, and I should have taken these bolts out so I don't drop it on my face. But I just want to make note of that. I'm probably going to do the driver's side also, do the same just while I have the extra clearance, and then I'll lower the motor, catch the bolts here for the bracket to the block. Alright, so with the engine dropped a little bit, I'm going to start reattaching the blocks for the bracket to the block. Or the bolts for the bracket to the block. And as you can see, it's pretty tight, so it is a little bit of a pain in the ass. And it's going to require just little adjustments of the engine while you're supporting it with the jack to get everything to line up and start catching the threads.
I'm surprised Dan didn't do AM intake.
I'm trying to record here, motherfucker.
Cut me out.
Now I gotta edit this.
So?
So? Making more work for me.
Good.
Alright guys, so the motor mounts are installed, and just to kind of recap the order operations here, I didn't film the installation of the driver's side just because it's a lot of tedious raising and lowering the jack to get your holes lined up and get the bolts in and snug, and because of the tight workspace here, you're kind of going back and forth with different wrenches and sockets just to get them snugged down. However, the concept is the same on both sides. So what I found worked the best, especially with the limited clearance from the J's Racing header here, is
I put the rubber mount in first, and then the cup. Put the bracket on top of it. Had a friend put a hand on the bracket while I snugged the nut that holds the bracket to the motor mount. Once that was in place, I started to lower the engine a little bit. Got my 4 holes lined up. Put the bolts in. Torqued them down, and then after doing the same for both sides, I left the bottom subframe nuts loose. So this is like kind of where the motor wants to sit down comfortably here. And so with now strictly the mount supporting the engine, I'm going to just snug these up. And that's that. So last but not least, the subframe brace. It's hard to do this and hold the camera at the same time. See where the hell I am. And then there we have it. Motor mounts in.
So that concludes the motor mount replacement in the S2000. It's a little bit of a pain in the ass. You know, some of the drawbacks of having Honda mount the F-Series engines as far back and as low down as they did is that it comes at the cost that everything's a little bit more tightly packaged. So accessibility is more limited as a result of that. This is not an impossible job to do. It just takes a little bit of patience and kind of adjusting the engine to get your bolts lined up and get everything in and out. But once you do that and you get past it, that's it. That's all there is to it. So, and if you guys are doing this at home, if you run into any issues or you have any questions, feel free to ask me below and I'll do whatever I can to help you out. But otherwise, thanks for tuning in and good luck with your projects. Till next time, done.